Okay, so it looks like Donald Trump is in a complete and total spiral. So his campaign is in a complete spiral. Reporting is saying that he's going in an absolute spiral right now. We can see the numbers are diverging almost in the opposite direction of what was happening with Biden. Biden was actually going in the opposite direction post debate. He was actually really close to winning. He was actually in the lead in some of the polls, in some of the aggregators. But I think in 5:30 he just got really close and then has diverged since then, and then he was down 3. It's almost going exactly in correlation with this. So he's spiraling. So this article says Trump allies fear he's sabotaging his own campaign. The former president can't get over feeling, quote, cheated by Joe Biden's exit from the race, says one source, while another speculates he might, quote, have PTSD following last month's assassination attempt. So this is also interesting. This comes from Vanity Fair, which I think had like that big rivalry with Trump right when he got elected. But let's go ahead and check out this article. So it says, Trump has been in a self-destructive spiral since the moment Democrats replaced Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. Trump's descent began when he made a racist claim at a July 31st conference for black journalists, saying that Harris has changed her identity for political gain. Quote, now she wants to be known as black, Trump claimed. At a rally in Georgia a few days later, Trump ranted for nearly 10 minutes about the state's popular Republican Governor Brian Kemp, whom Trump blamed for his 2020 loss to Biden. Also, by the way, I really hope that this attack on Brian Kemp really helps us win Georgia, because Georgia is definitely in play, hugely in play. I think Walz will stem out young voters, and I think Kamala will stem out black voters. So I think Georgia is definitely in play, and so hopefully him attacking Brian Kemp will give us, we just need a little bit of an edge. It doesn't have to be like a huge move, but just a little bit. Quote, Little Brian Kemp, bad guy, Trump fumed. On Truth Social, Trump floated unhinged evidence-free claims, such as his theories that Biden might crash the Democratic National Convention and take the nomination back, and that Harris and Democrats are running a psyop by creating AI videos and images of the vice president's PAC rallies. It's nuts, a Trump friend told me. Yeah, so he definitely watches videos of him and Biden, or just Biden in general in the race, and just masturbates. It's kind of like that Wolverine meme where it's like that sad meme where he's in the hospital bed looking at the picture. So it says Republican donors and Trump campaign officials are struggling to understand why Trump seems to be sabotaging his own candidacy. One theory, according to sources, is that Trump has been experiencing trauma from his near-death experience following the assassination attempt at the rally last month in Butler, Pennsylvania. He's been watching that 7-second clip of how close he was to getting shot right in the head over and over and over again, the Republican close to the campaign said. He may actually legit have PTSD. A campaign official confirmed that the shooting continues to weigh on Trump. He's been through a lot, the official said. The Trump campaign did not respond to a request for comment. So this is one theory about why he's kind of spiraling and going crazy. It's a pretty interesting one, and I think that he's definitely a psychopath for sure. But the thing is, the reason why he might actually have PTSD from this scenario is he's this huge narcissist. But what does a narcissist love the most? Themselves. So I feel like Trump loves himself the most. And so if you were to kind of say whether or not it's plausible that Trump would have PTSD over himself potentially dying, I think it's actually very plausible. Only because it has to do with himself. And I guess he really was just sort of the turn of a head where he almost died. So that's a huge deal. But just for reference, I don't think he would have cared that much if somebody else was that close to death. But he's like Kanye, right? So because he cares so much about himself, he probably really has PTSD. Oh my God, the greatest thing ever to Earth could have just died right there. So that's one thing that could be talking about it. Another theory is that Trump can't let go of the fact that Biden dropped out. Quote, they cheated by swapping Biden, Trump has told people, according to a person who recently spent time with the Republican presidential nominee. The Trump campaign believed that Harris's honeymoon would fade, but instead the opposite has happened. Her momentum is surging. Trump's advisors have implored him to launch policy attacks on Harris instead of using juvenile nicknames like Laughin', Kamala, and Kamabla. Longtime Trump confidant Roger Stone is among those who want Trump to change tactics. Quote, I do think it's counterproductive to call her stupid, he told me. Trump has rejected his team's advice. According to the Republican close to the campaign, Trump tells his advisors, I know what I'm doing. So he's kind of getting a little bit he's getting that narcissistic or that stubbornness, the stubbornness the old people have where they'll just refuse to say that they're wrong or disagree on something like that, or admit something is not true. He's kind of getting that too. And so I think for a lot of people, another thing is his age appears to be wearing on him, and the conversation is completely flipped entirely. And so, for example, this Megyn Kelly article, so it says, article about Megyn Kelly says, Megyn Kelly, Trump's rambling is boring and probably, quote, age-related. And so here's a quote from her. She says, and look, one of the reasons why Trump gets upset with yours truly, it's so narcissistic to say that, is because I have been raising that question for a while. And when he has what appears to be senior moments, I will call him out on it, and he doesn't like that, and I can't say that I blame him, but that's my job, Kelly said. And then she also says, I mean, it was like he rambles. He goes on too long at his rallies and in these exchanges at his presser the other day where you get kind of bored. You lose the thread, you lose interest, which is not something you're used to with Trump, she said. Trump in 2016, he was tough to lose interest in, and I think that's probably an age-related change. So I think this is one of the challenges of the people around him who I'm sure I'm desperately trying to get him to stick on message. So I don't know what the on-message plan even is right now, to be honest with you. I don't know if you guys know what that means. But it looks like the age-related factor is another big deal that's playing a big role here. But it's interesting to see how the conversation has completely changed. And there's this sort of analysis done, these numbers shown by Harry Enton on CNN, where it talks about how the too old to be president. So you can see among likely voters, this is a poll here. So it has the Democratic nominee right now, Harris gets 11% of people saying too old to be president. And that actually is kind of high. I'm surprised that it would be that way, given that she's 59. But in May, Biden was at 78%, which is insane, right? Absolutely massive. And then in May, Trump was at 53%. But it was weird, but because 53% is a pretty large number, but it was being masked by Biden's 78%, like massively, right? But now the entire conversation has changed, and so now the number has actually risen to 58%. So it's getting even worse for him. So Biden being so old was sort of covering for Trump being so old. But I think that the cognitive decline does sort of play a role, and I guess he's not as sharp or as interesting kind of as Megyn Kelly is saying as he was in 2016. There appears to even be cognitive decline from 2020, but definitely when I see him speak, he definitely seems sort of more angry, sort of he wakes up it looks like he woke up really groggy and is just having a bad day. I don't know if you guys kind of noticed that as well, but that's definitely what it seems like to me. And so even Bill O'Reilly here, he talked about how, Trump is acting very emotionally. He's lacking discipline. And so he's saying that he needs to sort of stay away from the bad attacks and stick to the policy attacks like the border, etc. To be honest with you, though, I'm not entirely convinced, if at all, that Donald Trump has a pathway where if he focuses on certain specific thing, it's somehow a solve all or fixes things. And I pose a question to you. I'm really curious to you. I'll pose you a hypothetical, and you let me know your response down below in the comment section. Donald Trump pays you. He pays you to be his campaign advisor, and you're tasked with the job of turning the campaign around. Because right now what's happening is we're having a reverse Biden, and there's no sight of like a return. With Biden, I think there was definitely a sight of a potential return. It was very early, and it was likely going to be that, the Biden people came back once it got closer and closer. I don't think there's any sort of sight of coming back, right? The vibes are just so strong. The energy is just so crazy. And you can just see it's diverging, right? Diverging away from each other. How do you solve that? How do you flip this election around? If that's you, if you're hired to be his campaign advisor to fix it, you let me know, because I honestly can't think of anything except for replacing J.D. Vance. I think replacing J.D. Vance would give something new, would be a spark. I think that the campaign just really needs some kind of spark right now. It needs that kind of blast, right, to change things up, kind of like the way that Harris ended up blasting it, right? And there's also this report going on. So this tweet says, new Trump reportedly in talks to fire campaign managers Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. By the way, Susie Wiles sounds like a massive porn star name. One of you guys should use that. Definitely would be very popular. So this comes from the Daily Mail, so it's not like super confirmed. There's only kind of like sort of sketchy kind of posters doing this. That's why I kind of just mentioned this in the video. So I want to make clear that I didn't make this as a video on its own. But there's talks that they're going to fire the campaign managers. And then I think a lot of people would say that, replacing J.D. Vance or something like this would lead to kind of like a chaos theory is what I call it, where it's like things look chaotic, so people are going to look poorly on you. I think that that's ridiculous. Like, I think if you can get rid of J.D. Vance, I think that's a good thing, like fixing a mistake. Trump would also have to admit that he was wrong. So he's probably unlikely to do that, especially in his senior age and he's having all his senior moments. So I think that's the only thing that I could think of. But Trump is definitely completely spiraling. The theorems for why are he's PTSD. He's really angry that Biden was switched out. I would feel cheated if I were him too, to be honest, just out of like pure like spite and just being like, oh man, what the hell? Bill O'Reilly's coming out and saying this, Megyn Kelly saying he's having his senior moments. So the conversation has just completely flipped, basically. And I don't want to say this too soon, but it's hard to see an outcome where Kamala loses at this point. But if you were tasked with being Donald Trump's campaign manager or whoever to fix the campaign, what do you do to fix the campaign? You let me know. And if there is a lever to fix it, I hope they don't pull it.